I will share an administrator's quote long ago to me who said, "Jay, what gets measured is what gets done." So my hope is that we actually move toward accurate measurement of the acts of hate, the incidents, and the actual crimes that occur in our state. I'm actually prepared to see data that says we're reporting more of those than we did in the past, maybe more than other communities, because to me that's a signal that we know more. It's the beginning of being able to do more. And then the biggest reward that I might look for is a measured decline in acts of hate as a result of so many things that we and others have done.
Jay, tell me about Partners Against Hate. What is it and why was it formed?
Our partnership is both reactive and proactive. It was reactive when some of us first sensed with anti-Semitism rising in Europe that we needed a task force locally to prepare. When the shooting in Pittsburgh occurred in 2018, the need was urgent. But we recognized after so many people came to show us concern in Salt Lake City for an event in Pittsburgh, that we had a wealth of individuals in Salt Lake City that could be mobilized to help us advance an agenda, which would be to fight against hate. The timing was ideal because in 2019, just after the shooting in Pittsburgh, our legislature met. And the dominant community in Utah actually is very well disposed toward the Jewish community. I think that the events in Pittsburgh were actually helpful in motivating both the leading church in the community and the legislators to finally do something after many years of hesitation to recognize all of the minorities that have been targeted historically, including ours. So that partnership was built around a reaction to a tragic event, but then we decided and have been proactive, trying to not just advocate for bills that were in existence, but trying to change the climate in our community. And so our allies and our partners include not just people who have experience with threats in their communities, but also the civic leaders and law enforcement that have the ability to respond to those. We're in constant communication. There have been lots of meetings between law enforcement and minority communities. And I think the climate is better than it might have been following an event like that had it not been addressed with expressions of support.
When you come to a conference like this, the Eradicate Hate Global Summit, there are so many different groups, law enforcement, people academics who study hate-fueled extremism, so on and so forth. When you interact with all those people, what do you find are the points of commonality?
I think the first thing to say is we're not here as experts in the fight against hate with any qualification. We are all concerned individuals with different strengths and weaknesses. Coming to the summit help us meet people who are experts in so many different fields. It was a little overwhelming, but I think the positive side of that is it almost felt like a support group. Whether you're expert in this area or just trying as an amateur to do something, there's a lot of awareness that people get it. They understand the problems differently than people do in our community who are not committed in this way. So I think it's all about learning and trying to pick out which things we need to learn. And the other thing about the summit is it facilitates connection. So if there are people who are expert, who have more to teach us than we can absorb, many of them are willing to help us, either remotely or personally by coming to the city. And we've had visits from people that we met at the 2022 summit.
Do you find that, based upon your experience, one very effective way to address hate-fueled extremism is at the local level?
Well, I think it has to happen at every level. I think that my training in infectious disease is exactly that way. In the emergency room, in the doctor's office, the encounter is terribly important. It needs to be recognized, it needs to be reported, and it needs to have the benefit of the best available information. As you move up from there, you get things like funding and policy support and regulation. Every one of those elements is important in addressing infectious disease and infectious feelings like hatred and even conspiracy theory. Yes, beginning at the local level, very important, but not enough.
Do you think that what you guys have done could serve as a model for other communities?
Well, My hope is that there are many different models. One of my concerns is that it isn't clear to me that any of us are very good at measuring the effect of what we've done. We're all very ambitious, we're trying, and we're trying to learn from the experience of others. But I think we're hearing presentations this year that are in the zone of evaluation of efficacy. So I think what I would say is if we get to the point where we're not just proud of what we've done, but we know that it's made a difference, then I'd be thrilled if people would model that. But I think we're all still looking closely at each other's work to see what's most effective.
Absent those sorts of data points, what's your gut feeling about your greatest success?
One, I would say that any success has been really hard. Probably the lesson for me has been patience and resilience, just responding to rejection and to keep going. I think that I'm really, really proud of the fact that we have multiple different minorities sitting next to each other, and in fact, sitting next to law enforcement. We're all talking to each other, and I think honestly building relationships. I think I'm really proud of that because when a crisis occurs, which could happen, I think we already know the people to turn to, and I think we've identified people we can count on. I actually think that might also be our biggest challenge. I think every minority, when it's attacked, feels like it's the worst attack and they are the most threatened. It's very difficult sometimes for them to stand up and give support to a different minority. I think we're approaching that.
Your group produced a public service announcement, a PSA.
In Salt Lake City,
We are taking a stand against hate,
and standing for inclusion,
for acceptance.
civility, and unity.
We have
take a
been
stand-
working on that project for almost 3 years. We see the idea of improving reporting of hate crimes as extremely challenging. I'm used to underreporting in medicine, where the problem is often doctors not taking the time to report what they already know, and they're not punished for reporting, but they're too busy. In the case of hate crimes, people are often afraid and distrustful of law enforcement. So the last thing they want to do is to get involved personally with their own data in the hands of the police. A really good example is our colleague Consul Baca from Mexico. If you're an undocumented immigrant in the United States and you've been badly assaulted, the last thing that you want to do in some communities is inform the police about who you are and what happened. We're working really hard in Salt Lake City to make that community feel trusting, and we have to deliver on that. And I think we have law enforcement at the county and the city level that is ready to take those calls without consequences other than support to the people who are calling in.